Welcome to the McLibel DVD commentary track. My name's Franny Armstrong and I was the director of this film.
I'm Dave, one of the defendants in the case.
Hi, I'm Helen, and I spent too long being involved with it.
And what do you think of that bit where you tell Dave to hold the bag up?
Well, I'd normally be a bit embarrassed about it, actually, because it's me telling him what to do, which I didn't do that much of the time, really. A lot of people kind of had this perception that Dave was in charge of the case and running it, and I was just some kind of following on.
Yeah.
So it was kind of quite good to counter that in a way.
I mean, the reality, in fact, was the opposite, really, because it was Helen who originally was the one who was determined to fight, and I came in because I knew there'd be two of us. You can win victories, but it's usually not by just playing by the rules. Oppressive laws can be changed and defeated, usually by defiance and by, publicity and public outrage.
But you were playing their own game, though, weren't you, by taking on the court case?
No, it's not their own game. And the point is, we're standing up for the truth. But there's, you have to find ways of getting it out that isn't reliant on the opinion of one judge in a biased setting. But having said that, Helen was very good at keeping us focused on the legal aspects, which I was tending to kind of think, well, that's all kind of irrelevant, let's just sort of stand up and have an argument with the judge at the next hearing, which actually doesn't really get you very far.
So here you are doing some gardening, Helen. We always plugged you as, the gardener and the postman. So what is the real story? Were you a gardener? Are you a gardener?
I'm not a gardener now, but I had been a gardener at various times before the court case started.
So do you grow your own food?
Well, I've got an allotment, and I grow quite a lot of my own food.
I've always appreciated that people can grow their own food and share it, and it's fresh and it's organic, and that's a real contrast with what McDonald stands for, which is mass-produced, processed food made for profit by some big corporation.
So this interview here with Dave is actually post-makeover, isn't it? So you've got a haircut and you've got some decent glasses and not a bad shirt on and stuff like that.
You want people to listen to what you've got to say, so, you kind of make an effort. Charlie!
Yeah. So now we've got a very special guest with us here today. Is Mr. Charlie, son of a certain Dave Morris. How are you doing, Charlie?
Doing fine, thank you.
Good. How old are you now?
I'm 15.
So you're not embarrassed seeing yourself then?
No, not really. It's because I'm in one of the biggest court cases in England's history on film.
And you're the star?
Yeah.
He's growing up in a very hostile environment, all the images that are forced on kids from advertising.
So what's the main change in your dad since the court case finished?
Well, he's more relaxed and he seems to talk more. Now he makes proper dinners. He tries.
What's his best dish?
He makes lasagna and maybe some roast potatoes and gravy and salad. Always has salad.
So this is one of your favourite bits, this graphic, Helen, isn't it?
Yeah, I saw this and I just thought, this is outrageous. It makes it sound like I'm following Dave around. I was trying to get you to change it and you steadfastly refused.
No, I was saying if you could give me one word which meant that you came along later than him in time that wasn't follows, I would very happily change it.
I mean, here you can see that the leaflet's churning off the presses. In fact, I wasn't actually involved, neither of us were involved in writing the leaflet. That's a real big irony.
So who did write it?
There was a sort of subgroup in London Greenpeace who just basically got on and they were the people behind the anti-McDonald's campaign.
That McDonald's were actually aware that the London Greenpeace leaflets were out of print. Their own spies were recording this in their notes of the meetings, that the leaflets had run out, that the anti-McDonald's campaign was not the big focus of the group. And I think that actually they chose to strike at that moment because they thought because it wasn't a big campaign of the group, London Greenpeace then wouldn't bother to fight it, which would then mean that they could parade it around to all the other groups around the country and around the world. Hey, London Greenpeace have backed down and they've said that, okay, we accept these things aren't true.
So Helen, you actually suspected that the spies were spies, didn't you?
Not all of them. There were a few of them that we kind of were suspicious about. I then tried to follow one of the spies.
Anthony,
to find out where he was going, and I put on a wig and was trailing him down the street into the underground.
They actually did do some illegal things, didn't they? Like breaking into the office and stealing letters and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the whole thing was completely unethical and disgusting, and I'm glad it all came out because, of course, it was all secret. But as a result of the court case, we finally got all their secret notes that they'd been taking.
I like the bit where one of the spies is spying on another spy. They didn't realise it's another spy. They're going, so-and-so's acting a bit suspiciously.
At some meetings, there were as many spies as campaigners present.
This is one of the maddest coincidences of McLibel. My sister was doing a nutrition course. My sister's the kind of person where people want to confide in her and tell them secrets. So they went out together, Jan, who's really called Fran, and my sister, after their nutrition course one day, and had a few drinks. And then Jan said, I want to tell you something that I've never told anybody before, and said to my sister that she used to be a spy and that she'd once been a spy for McDonald's. And my sister obviously fell off her chair and said, you're not talking about the McLibel case, are you? Because I was making the documentary by this stage. That's how you got in touch with Fran, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And then in the end, Fran gave evidence for you.
Yeah. There were 5 people in London Greenpeace who got writs, and I think basically they were the people that the McDonald's spies managed to follow home and get their addresses. The other 3 people reluctantly decided that they would pull out.
And how were you feeling at that point, Dave?
Well, I had a lot of domestic problems which I had to sort out, and I didn't really want to get involved with the case, especially I wasn't really involved with the campaign anyway.
So McDonald's wasn't a big issue for you?
Not really, no. But hey, if they're up for it, then I'm up for it. Even though McDonald's is not, for me, a major priority because they're just another crappy company. Hey, what a company to be sued by. Here we had a golden opportunity for worldwide publicity about nutrition, about workers' rights, and about the environment and so on. And McDonald's will be paying for it all.
We believe that to repay that trust, we have to establish that these allegations are untrue.
I think you can learn from your opponents. But it struck me, the more I looked at McDonald's, whatever they do is for one end, to increase their power and their profits and their propaganda.
But it was always about getting the publicity, wasn't it?
When I took it on, I didn't even think about publicity for the campaign. I was just thinking, I'm not going to apologise to you, and what have I got to do in order to not do that? However, if I thought that it was going to last 10 years, I might just have said, I don't recognise your right to use the legal system to silence people, and I'm not going to recognise your judgment.
And then you'd have gone to jail for a couple of months.
Yeah, if that's what it takes, yeah. Probably a couple of months inside would have been easier, yeah.
In our society, life is a war because the rich and powerful are extremely rich and powerful, and getting more so and having more damaging effect on our society and on our planet. Basically, people have to fight back, and there shouldn't be any illusions that that's going to be easy.
Look at the state of my flat there. It's completely full of papers. I was living in a tiny 1-bedroom flat at the time, and as you can see there, I had to have all the files out in the hallway, all over my living room floor.
Because my main motivation is to see a better world and to stand up to injustice. It's all good news, even though we had to go through the mill to get that far. I remember the first time we went to court. It's a really huge and sprawling Gothic building with all these corridors leading nowhere and stairs and back stairs. We just heard, we've got to go to court 36 today. Where's court 36? Everything seemed to intimidate and try to impress with the sheer power of the place.
Here's the judge, Justice Bell. We were doing something completely different, and Dave went, look, there's the judge, there's the judge. So we just got that tiny, tiny little shot of him.
Richard Rampton QC at about £2,000 a day, as well as a junior barrister and about 7 solicitors and clerks from a leading city law firm. Dave and Helen were representing themselves.
The fast food company McDonald's has begun a high...
We wanted to put McDonald's point of view across. And McDonald's expert witnesses were not allowed to speak to us. I mean, we wrote to several of them asking for interviews, and then we would get letters back from McDonald's, who we hadn't written to, which is actually why we ended up having to do courtroom reconstructions.
So far as McDonald's are concerned, anybody is free to express his criticism in whatever form he wishes.
Now I'm here in Soho with Mr. Ken Loach himself. How are you?
I'm well.
And so why, when some nobodies who'd never made a film before came and asked you to help them out, why did you say yes?
Well, clearly it was an important point of principle for the 2 people who had told the truth about McDonald's. It was very important that they should be defended, and I was very impressed with your making of the film, and so I was anxious to help in any small way I could.
Are you a big fan of McDonald's?
I'm not a fan of McDonald's, no. In fact, it's I don't think anyone from our family's ever been in, as far as I know. They haven't told me about it anyway.
When did you 2 last eat at McDonald's?
I've never eaten there in my life.
I used to occasionally go in for one of their triple thick shakes, but then when I discovered it had equivalent of 12 spoonfuls of sugar in it, it put me right off.
I went on my first ever date to McDonald's.
You didn't?
I did. I never told you that.
No.
So I was in Africa in 1994 and I called my dad and he said to me, "Have you heard about this trial in London that's going on? It seems to be very you. Why don't you borrow my camera and make a film?" And as soon as I found out more about the trial, I realised that it had all the issues that I'd always been passionate about, but with this brilliant human story at the centre of it. And they said to me, "You're too late, because we've got 8 other production companies have already contacted us, and they're all busy trying to get commissions." A while later, Helen and Dave contacted me again and said, "Nobody's managed to get a commission. They've all dropped out."
Everybody that on our side was giving their time for nothing because they believed in what was going on. I think what we must have said to you was, well, you know, if you haven't got a commission, it doesn't stop you making a film.
That's exactly what you said to me, Dave.
That's well, okay.
I had no intention of being a filmmaker or anything like that. It was more that I just thought the story was brilliant and it should be told. It was supposed to take only about 6 months, but it ended up taking, well, the actual film itself took about 3 years on and off. That was 7 years ago, and here I am making the DVD and doing screenings and distributions and websites, and so it's been a good 10 years of my life as well, on and off.
Dr. Arnott, is it not a fact that many responsible international...
Keir was saying to me that you've probably got, between you, more courtroom experience than almost all barristers. Because obviously most cases don't go on so long, and, you know, they only have a couple of days in court, and then it's, 3 months preparation.
I think you need to see people when they're really in the heat of battle, because that's when they reveal themselves. There was no money for a courtroom, so it's more or less all done in close-up, which I think I could probably have done it better in retrospect, but then there you go. I mean, the main thing was to record what was said, really.
Equally convincing evidence from other studies which fail to demonstrate that.
Is it the main reason you make films, to make change in the world?
No, I make films because I make films, really. Like people write books or paint pictures. But nevertheless, the choice of stories or the choice of characters or situations that you want to explore obviously reflect how you think the world is and the way the world runs.
The film that you've made is a very good film, and a lot of the politics does come out, but I think that there's too much on the human.
But the very fact that you fought the case, the very fact that you are as obsessed as you are, we're trying to get these issues out to people who are not as interested as you. They don't want to sit through 313 days in court and 60,000 pages of evidence.
I don't want to sit through it either, actually.
You need a little bit of sugar on the medicine. And you two are the sugar.
I don't actually think it's true that people aren't interested in the issues. If you go anywhere and start listening in on someone's conversation, it's something that they aren't happy with, but it's not something that they see as they can change.
This actor here is in Star Wars. I think he's head of a planet or something like that.
Head of a planet?
I don't know what he is, but he has a very long pointy beard. I know that in Star Wars.
Would that be a reasonable statement?
Well, it depends to whom it is directed.
The public.
If it's being directed...
It actually took 3 or 4 hours of cross-examination, and I was really nervous because I knew that at some point I was going to have to kind of put the extract from our own document to them, but trick them so they didn't realise. It was kind of a theatrical moment, but I was thinking this is going to look good when it comes out publicly.
A direct quote from the London Greenpeace fact sheet.
When Franny does the reconstruction,
When
directed by
Ken
Ken
Loach. When Ken Loach does this bit.
Well, what's the best thing that ever came out in terms of change from one of your films?
I think it's never quantifiable. I mean, it's never kind of one-to-one. So you make a film on a subject and therefore there's an immediate change because life is more complicated than that. If you're lucky, you get little dialogues and questions, and in a sense, a film is just one more voice in the chorus of whichever side you're on.
Well, we used to get a lot of letters saying, I agree with everything you say, and from now on I'm not going to McDonald's, I'm only going to Burger King.
We made similar mistakes in the beginning of letting the audience off the hook. Well, Cathy Come Home is an example of implying that there was a way out of this situation without confronting, in that case, the ownership of the land, the location of employment and so on.
This bit of the verdict was ridiculous anyway, because that wasn't what the leaflet had said in the first place. And actually, the Court of Appeal overturned the judge's verdict and said that for regular customers of McDonald's, there was a very real risk of heart disease. So we won on that in the end.
One of the main points that we missed out, which really annoys me, is obviously we say that there was no jury, but there's an important point to be made about why it's so outrageous that you didn't have a jury, because McDonald's argued successfully that the case was too complicated for ordinary people to understand. But Helen and Dave, you're ordinary people. I know you're extraordinarily ordinary, but you are ordinary people. And so if you can understand it, then a jury can understand it.
Not having a jury meant that we were the only real people in the courtroom who are speaking or, involved with the case. Everyone else was in this elite little club of well-paid, highly trained, probably public school educated, and that's the way the wheels of justice grind on.
When Dave did try and get friendly...
Well, you what?
No, there was this really funny incident where Dave was asking the other side's solicitor to do something, and he called her by her first name, Patty. Richard Ranson, McDonald's QC, turned around and said, "Patty, it's Mrs. Brindley Codd to you. They'll be calling me Dickie next." And the whole court just completely dissolved into fits of laughter. All the judge, the stenographers, everybody in the courtroom.
For most of the McLibel years, I was signing on the dole and was very, very poor and had no money. And yet, it was easily the most enriching experience of my life. Just the passion that everybody who was working on it brought. I was so inspired by Helen and Dave and what they were doing. And we just seemed to be having a real effect. There was so much coverage, there were so many people joining in the campaign, so many media-type people were wanting to help me. Obviously, Ken Loach came. He spent over an hour going through my film with me, shot by shot. Have you considered this? I'm not sure it works where you introduce Helen like this or whatever. And basically, I had a masterclass from Ken Loach. It was priceless.
In fact, actually, there was a lot of people who helped out in many different ways. Obviously, witnesses coming forward without payment, people sending research from all over the world, people staying at my house to help me with childcare, with cooking, with photocopying stuff. I mean, we had to photocopy hundreds of thousands of pages of documents. The amount of forest that must have been destroyed as a result of this case.
We were using recycled paper.
Obviously, the case was extremely stressful and exhausting and hard work for a very long time. But at the same time, it was very empowering, exciting that we were having so much success, not just us in the courtroom, but the campaign generally, the publicity and protests throughout the world, days of action, information coming out about McDonald's. To me, it was kind of a historic disaster for a major corporation. It was the first time, really, I think, in history that there'd been a public tribunal on the inner workings of a multinational corporation.
That was one of my very favourite things about the whole McLibel case. A huge corporation like McDonald's, which looks like it's an unstoppable global force, actually it came down to one person saying, "No, sorry, I'm not apologising." And because of that, it's like a tiny little rock against a huge river or whatever. And you said that, and then look what came from it. Just from one person, it shows the power of an individual.
It's like an avalanche, isn't it? It starts off with a little stone rolling down the hill.
I prefer the rock river analogy. So after the BBC and Channel 4 pulled it, I was obviously really depressed that it was not going to get any kind of screening. And so we had this idea that we'd just send out this email to all the McLibel supporters around the world saying that the film had been, banned in the UK, but we were having a global screening, we called it, of the film. And if everybody could play it at the same day, at the same time, that would be great. And we had 104 screenings in 22 different countries. Good job I got that personal stuff in, otherwise all those people wouldn't have seen it.
Good job we got all the politics, and otherwise it wouldn't have been worth seeing in the first place.
These McDonald's adverts, obviously they didn't give us permission to use their adverts. As well as helping us with the reconstructions, Ken Loach also lent us his libel lawyer, which was very helpful. And this guy, Robin Lewis, he advised us that you are able to use somebody else's copyright material if you use it in a certain way, if you're making a critique of it, as we were for their adverts. So basically, we didn't get permission, but it is legal. It's a law called fair dealing.
That's what I was, Ronald McDonald. Kids love him, and they don't know why they love him. They love him because they were told to love him.
So did you enjoy any part of it?
Probably little bits, I can't remember. Not much.
Think back.
The last day, not the verdict, but the day that everything ended, all the evidence was over and all the closing speeches were over.
It wasn't just cross-examining witnesses in the courtroom for all that time. It was also having lots of legal argument and in fact, even our closing speeches, that took 26 days of non-stop.
What, you and Helen talked for 26 days?
Yeah.
Mostly Dave.
The next time they have a chance to go out to eat, they might select that over one of our competitors.
This is a very key document, the operations manual, and it took us years to get McDonald's to hand it over, and there was a problem all the way through the case with getting them to hand over documents which they were legally supposed to do.
As soon as you told me, Dave, that McDonald's were talking about sponsoring Charlie's Fun Day, I just thought this is going to be the best scene in the whole film. I was just so excited. So I remember at one point I was trying to film Ronald doing his magic show, and I got surrounded by the heavies. I said, I'm a parent and I want to film it for my kids so they can remember the lovely day and the McDonald's show. The McDonald's person said, Ronald doesn't want you to film because he doesn't want the children to know how he does his magic tricks.
At one point I saw McDonald's security saying to the police that I should be arrested. Yeah,
What
for
were the police doing there?
my own son's fun day.
That you'd organised?
I'd helped to organise. And so I actually went and sat in the middle of the kids that were watching the magic show because I knew they wouldn't be able to arrest me at that point. But
On what grounds were they going to arrest you?
Well, the whole thing was ridiculous. And afterwards there was a huge row and the council apologised and said they wouldn't allow that kind of sponsorship again at one of their play centres, and the guy had to resign.
There were so many issues in the case. Just trying to decide what we were going to put in and what we were going to leave out was such a mammoth task. I mean, what do you think we should have put in?
I think there was lots of stuff that was very important that didn't go in the film. For example, central to us was London Greenpeace and the politics of London Greenpeace and the McLibel campaign. I don't think that came out enough. Of course, the human story is built around the court case, but for me, in fact, the grassroots campaign is more important.
And said that McDonald's exploit children by using them as more susceptible subjects of advertising.
Well, I can remember loads of arguments at the time about the fact that we thought there was way too much personal stuff in there and not enough about what the actual issues were in the case, that there should be more of that and less of us, really.
And what do you think now, watching the film?
I still think the same.
Do you? Because I still...
There's way too much of us.
No, but there's not enough of you. I think the film is terribly, terribly let down, and it just shows how amateur it is, that we don't really get to know who you are at all. I remember this really clear example where Dave was in a real bad state and he actually started crying. You went in your bedroom and you were crying and he was saying it can't go on and all this kind of thing, and I had my camera with me but I was concerned with him and I didn't get my camera out and film him and get a shot of Dave crying, which would have been the emotional high point of the film.
You didn't mind torturing me.
So when we'd sold the film to BBC briefly, the secret recording was one of the things that we were going to have to cut out, which was fine by me. I didn't mind cutting something if it meant the film was going to get broadcast. But the reason was, the BBC editorial policy at that time, I don't know if it still is, was that they can only show a secret recording if the subject is of great public interest. And they gave us an example, something like somebody plotting to assassinate the Prime Minister. I think the idea that a multinational corporation that is ruling and ruining so many lives in so many different ways is not of great public interest is just laughable, really. So, McLibel defendants, where did you get this tape from?
So I actually wanted to video it, but didn't know where to get hold of a video from. This was before the days we met you. And so I just ended up with this pocket tape recorder that I had. It was a complete nightmare trying to silently turn the tape over in my pocket without them realising what I was doing. It mostly went okay, apart from on one occasion I must have missed the record button and just pressed the play. I had one completely blank side, which sadly is where they basically accepted that, they were an anti-union company.
I don't think you ought to hand out leaflets about McDonald's. I think you've played that card. No, you've done it. You've had your day in the sun.
Oh, this comment was just completely ridiculous. It was as though we were fighting the case to gain personal publicity instead of because of the importance of the issues at stake. It really showed what a gulf there was between us, really.
Clearly they have absolutely no idea about what you're doing this for and all that kind of thing. Do you have any idea about them as people, what they're doing it for?
Money. They're doing it for money at the end of the day, aren't they? They're all being paid a massive wage. It's in their interest to keep the company going and selling as many products as possible so that they can make as much profits as possible.
So what was it like in the meeting? What was their attitude towards you?
It was kind of weird. I mean, when we first went in, Dave refused to shake hands with Shelby Yastro or Dick Starman. He refused to shake hands with either of them. And then Yastro made this kind of sarcastic comment about us. He hoped that we were all here to be mature. It was a bit of a soft cop, hard cop routine with Shelby Yastro being the soft cop and trying to well, what could we do,
let's all be chummy together and sort this situation out.
Right. And then Dick Starman being much more the sort of hard copper. He thought we were the scum of the earth and should be shot on sight.
Yeah, apparently he's got a history of being involved with psychological warfare in the US military.
The ideal person to be
I think he had
sent.
other tactics that he'd like to have used.
And so it was back to court.
Although we made the whole film with no commission, we obviously did need some money. As the trial progressed, more and more news companies started doing stories worldwide. And so, every few weeks, basically, we'd get a news company ringing us up. This scene here, where Helen and Dave are on the tube, is the most popular scene. This scene pretty much funded the whole film on its own. Just the number of news stations we sold it to. I mean, it does say it all. It does say London, it does say broke, it does say obsessed.
That was the only time we really had to discuss the case, me and Helen, together, face to face.
Do you feel like you've lost a large part of your life to this?
Although, obviously, I think a lot of benefit has come from the court case in terms of people being much more aware of the issues. Personally, the cost has been quite high.
I don't really feel I lost out, I have to say. Yes, it was hard work, but a lot of people do a lot of hard work in our society. Things, if you're going to climb a mountain, you have to do a lot of preparation, you have to go and do it.
But what about the personal sacrifice? Do you think it was worth it from your life's point of view and from Charlie as well?
I don't see it as a sacrifice. Looking back, I see it as a wholly positive part of my life where I was able to achieve a lot by working very hard.
Did you feel like, why is my dad doing this court case or anything like that? Why isn't he looking after me? Or
Yeah, a little bit. I knew he had to do what he had to do because I know Dave and his principal. So.
Well, even when you were 6, you understood that?
Yeah, well, when my dad meant something and he was going to do it, he would do it. He wouldn't think, nah, forget it. My mum didn't live with us. She lived in a different place. I couldn't really go out because I was too young, so it was a bit lonely.
When McDonald sued your dad, what do you think he should have done then?
I think he should have done exactly what he did. Stood up to them and try and embarrass them as much as possible.
Even though you lost 10 years of your life?
Yeah, well, it'd be good if it was a little bit shorter. Try half as much.
Our whole society is like it is because of the work that people do, the labour and the time that they put in. That was the first thing that I hated about McDonald's was the way they exploited their workers.
The type of work organisation promoted by McDonald's, this extreme breaking down of simple repetitive operations and so forth, is essentially dehumanising.
I love the way you turn it. It's great.
In the last 2 or 3 years, there's been an international McDonald's workers resistance network with their own website and so on, days of action and stuff, and that's been a really positive thing that's come out of the case.
Most of the film was shot on beta, which was the standard at the time, but also that was the camera that my dad had got, so that was the camera that we used. It was a big, heavy old monster, and the batteries weighed a ton, and basically you'd need at least 2 people just to carry the stuff. But then during the course of the film, the Sony VX1000 DV camera came out, and as soon as the DV cameras came along, they were so light, it basically meant that I could do the whole shoot on my own, and it kind of revolutionised things.
After about a year of the trial, I got a job working in a nightclub.
Did you feel like you didn't have enough to do or something?
I was just going to do it for 4 weeks, but what I actually found was it was the one place where, because there was so much to do, I just couldn't actually think about McDonald's, so it stopped me being really stressed about the case. And actually, it was part of a strategy which kept me sane, I think.
When you were all sitting there for 313 days in the same room, I mean, what kind of personal relationships developed between you?
Well, we didn't really have any kind of relationship. The alarming thing was that later on in the trial, Sid Nicholson developed this habit of winking at me across the back of the courtroom.
Who's Sid Nicholson?
Off-putting. That's the Senior Vice President of Security.
And personnel. Managed to combine security and personnel, yeah. Which is interesting.
And he's the guy that also hired the private investigators to infiltrate London Greenpeace, and he's the guy that used to be the top cop in Brixton. He was a police officer in South Africa during the apartheid era. I can't remember what other strings he had to his bow.
He actually sat in the McLibel courtroom for 313 days, i.e. every day. As McDonald's representative, he wasn't doing anything, he was just sitting there listening. So I always wanted to ask him, having sat there and listened to all the evidence, whether he changed his mind about McDonald's, because I don't think that people who typically work for a big corporation, when they get criticised, I wouldn't have thought they actually think about what the criticisms are. They just go into panic mode and damage limitations and start throwing writs around.
Thing is, they're nobodies, because they're only there because they're being paid and they're part of a machine. They're not thinking for themselves. To me, how can you have a relationship with people in a position of power and authority? You can't.
So had you had much experience of dealing with the media before this?
Virtually none, I should think. It was frightening, the number of media that wanted to talk to us. I just used to try and avoid doing it all the time, but then it ended up Dave was just doing all of it, and then I thought, that's so much of a stereotype that the bloke is doing all the talking that I kind of forced myself to do more interviews. I could never cope with the live ones. Dave always had to do them.
They're really scary. I remember doing one of the equivalent of the BBC in Canada. I was just thinking, this is going out live to half of the people in Canada. I've just got to come out with something that's very inspiring and, and empowering and accurate. Whereas McDonald's and corporations and governments, politicians get their views constantly forced on the public all the time. And this is my one little, chance to get something over.
Did you pull it off? Did you come out with something good?
I just about made it to the end of the interview, yes, without putting my foot in it, yeah.
I feel absolutely fine speaking in court, but put me in front of a camera and I'll just...
I love that bit, Helen, that's so sweet.
No, it's not. It's horrible. It's embarrassing.
Something of McDonald's media tactics was revealed by a leaked company memo from Australia.
Even when we got them to hand over documents, we still had more problems because they would blank out large sections, and the judge would sort of say, well, unless you can show me that the blanked out sections are relevant, then I'm not going to order that they unblank them out. There was one document in particular, I can remember, it was all about the picket and there was large bits blanked out, and I was saying, well, it can't be about anything else. They're not going to be putting the weather forecast in there. He just said, well, if they say it's not relevant, it's not relevant.
And now we're joined by another guest. And what is your name, young man?
My name is Jesse. Me and a bunch of other campaigners decided to do a site called McSpotlight. And we decided everyone was called Jesse just to get over the boring things of, what's your name then?
Oh, so it was more just a kind of pragmatic thing rather than anything to do with being sued by McDonald's?
Well, there was that too. Where Helen and Dave in real time launched McSpotlight, we actually screwed up in not getting the right piece of kit to the launch, but just at the last minute, a great big bearded hippie came out of the mist with the right laptop, the right mobile phone and the right cards, which meant we could actually hit the button and the website went live.
So who was this man?
We don't know. We tried to talk to him afterwards, but he'd gone.
What's wrong with McDonald's leaflets? Now translated into 12 languages and ready to be printed off.
We've taken what Helen and Dave did one stage further and made this available internationally for all time, never to be censored again.
So why did you make a website?
You go around to Dave's house and you would just see mountains and mountains and mountains of stuff, and it was like, nobody else can see it. So the best way of getting that out there was obviously to make it as widely distributable as possible. The internet was made for that kind of thing. Secondly, obviously the mass media were concentrating on very small aspects of the trial. Thirdly, there was McDonald's with $2 billion worth of marketing PR budget every year.
What was your budget?
Our budget were a couple of PCs, a lot of imagination and buckets of time. So was it a popular site? Did anyone look at it? Yeah, millions of people looked at it. We're currently standing at just under 100 million hits.
I think one of the important points is that McDonald's obviously are famously anti-union, and what you did on McSpotlight is you gave the McDonald's workers of the world an opportunity to discuss the in-store conditions.
The McDonald's Workers Forum in the debating rooms was a facility whereby people could actually do that and share experiences and basically realise that there was similar stuff happening in London as in New York, as in Brazil, and realise that McDonald's were screwing workers over the world over.
These lorries are a nice example of the dedication, that perhaps obsession I had for this film. We waited outside on 2 consecutive days, so about 20 hours, just to get that one shot that goes past in 4 seconds. And any time I have to do that again, I would do it again. Did you get sued by McDonald's?
No, we didn't. And when we still launched the site, we weren't sure whether we would or not. But more importantly, we didn't really mind if we did. We proved it that we had a pretty watertight strategy, and that there were several things that we did that basically meant if they did take us on, as it were, then they would have failed miserably. The main server was in the Netherlands, and the reason for that was because Netherlands have less ridiculous libel laws than the UK, which meant that server was less likely to actually get impounded. There were a series of other servers around the world that were mirroring that main server on a live basis, so if one server went down, then the other servers would pick up the website and users wouldn't notice any denial of service or change of service. Secondly, there was a zipped up mini version of the site which had core information such as the leaflet itself and a couple other aspects of the site, and we asked people to download that, and if the site ever came under attack for whatever reason, then we would send out a call for those mini versions of the site to be uploaded onto personal homepages, etc, etc.
But you never came to any of that?
Never heard a dicky from McDonald's about what they thought of us or anything like that, apart from they sent us a cheque once.
Did they?
Yeah, they sent us a cheque, £12, McDonald's Incorporated.
What for?
For the CD version of the website.
The CD version?
Yeah.
Did you send them a CD?
We did debate it though. Should we send them or not?
You didn't see the point of McSpotlight before it was made, did you?
No, I thought it might distract people from the most important thing to me was there was the leafleting in the streets and talking to people face to face. I was thinking, well, if people just stare at their computers all the time, that's not as empowering. But of course, it's invaluable source of information for the whole planet. So
you're saying you're wrong, in other words?
I was completely wrong, yeah.
When we were approached by people from Spotlight, we'd never even heard of a website. We didn't know what they were, we didn't know what they did, how you used them or anything. So it was just like this completely alien concept.
So what about the idea of doing a documentary when that was first mooted? What did you think of that?
I wasn't very keen on it. I was just thinking, no, more work, more stress. It's too much already. I can't cope with the court case, let alone being filmed at the same time.
Are you glad now, Helen?
I kind of guess overall.
It's just part of a whole patchwork of things that were going on that were all in their own way important. All more work for us, but all important.
You sit back and think about some of the witnesses that could have come on behalf of Dave and Helen, but didn't because nobody could pay their airfare. The verdict pales into insignificant.
We did actually think about a third option when we got the writs. We did talk about just ignoring it and saying, you don't have the right to tell us what we can and can't distribute and what we can and can't say. We don't recognise that the courts have got any right to be telling people that.
Why did you decide not to do that?
Well, I don't think we actually decided not to do it. We had these meetings with the lawyers and they said, right, you've got to do this at this stage and this at this stage. And basically we kind of got the defence in and then we thought, well, we might as well go to the next stage. And we kind of it went stage by stage until it got to a certain point where we'd got, 3 or 4 documents in, and then it kind of felt like, well, we've done so much work now, we might as well just carry on. So it wasn't really a deliberate strategy of fighting the case the whole way through.
Personally, for me, it was the most inspiring thing I've ever done, mainly because, I was doing my bit making the film. You two fighting in the court case was inspiring me, and then when the McSpotlight people joined in, all the people doing the leafleting, and this is what we all say we want, everybody working to using all their skills in a common purpose and all this kind of thing, That's about the only time I've ever experienced that. And it was fantastic. Every day, I'd wake up with the fire in the belly.
We do stand up, though, when he comes in. It's a bit of a sellout.
I think Helen and me have a particularly good working relationship because we've campaigned together on a number of issues for...
So sorry, I did have to put in that stuff about the sex angle because that was the first question people always asked, are you two going out with each other or whatever. I thought that the way you said that really cleared it up.
There's no sex angle, I'm afraid.
Some people have said to me actually that it sounds like, Dave, you're saying, but I wish there were.
I'm forever getting called Mrs. Morris and Dave's wife and his assistant and things like that. But
so do you want to clear it up for us, Helen, once and for all? Go on.
There's no sex angle. That's Dan, and I remember he came to one meeting and he just looked like he was interested in helping. So I said, how'd you like to set up a McLibel office? And he said, okay. And then next thing we knew, it was his bedroom. For about 3 or 4 years, he worked almost as hard as we did. He worked full-time, night and day on support work for us in court, raising money, supporting the campaign generally.
He was pretty much the McLibel number 3, wasn't he?
He was really the third defendant, yeah.
So obviously this whole film was made with no money, with no commission. So everybody worked on it for free, and we got volunteer camera people. And one of them said to me once, which I shall always remember, he said, most films I do for my bank balance, but this film I do for my soul.
So many people were so pleased to be able to help out in some way because McDonald's is such an arrogant, all-pervasive company that people just have to stand up to it and do something about it.
It's got to the point where I just don't have any time for Charlie anymore, and communication's broken down between us, and I just end up shouting at him, and I just got to say, look, Charlie, just go off and play because I've just got work to do.
Was there any good things for you from the whole court case thing?
Yeah, actually, I got to go abroad a lot, like to a place like America.
Why was that?
Because I think people over there were interested in my dad's work.
You and I, Helen, this is our biggest fight. We had a lot of fights, didn't we? But this is the biggest one. I think you actually did reduce me to tears over this one.
I'd never.
Because you and Dave were having this really good argument.
I wouldn't call it good. I've called it extremely frustrating.
But that was the point, because the court case is frustrating and you're taking it out on each other, and that's depicting it.
I guess I felt that the bit that was being put in made me look really like I was being horrible to Dave. It's actually very easy to shift things from one document to another.
That's just a fact.
Well, if you took about 2 minutes, you could.
No, I can't.
You don't necessarily want all your private arguments broadcast in public. Anyway, you're going to make an admission now. How easy it is to do that.
What?
But it doesn't matter what the argument's about.
Certainly
That's the whole
not.
point.
There's this kind of conspiracy in the media generally that politics is about what politicians do and government, and that's all a bit sort of worthy and a bit boring, and it has to have a bit of that on the news, you know, what Tony Blair said last night. But actually that's not politics at all. Real politics is about our everyday lives and how we face up to the problems in our society and who's causing them.
Are the methods by which animals to make McDonald's food are reared and slaughtered cruel and inhumane?
It was hugely rewarding working on McSpotlight, being able to put this information onto the website, and then sometimes within half an hour or an hour you'd get a call from people either in the media or campaigners in a local group, and they'd want to know more information. You really felt that there were people out there waiting for this information to be published.
What kind of press coverage did you get?
All mainstream media, from the newspapers through to television, radio, and globally it was in the front cover of USA Today, papers like India Times.
Sydney Morning Herald, wasn't
Sydney
it?
Morning Herald
Yeah.
as well, yeah. Previously, newspapers, media had been attacked by McDonald's. They were the very victims of what Helen and Dave were going through. So they were very interested to see how McSpotlight was doing and how it would do.
This footage here was taken by someone who sent it to us and offered to be a witness. They came to court and were giving their evidence all about the horrific conditions that the chickens were living in. All McDonald's were interested in was whether or not they'd got permission to film it and whether they'd, broken in. Basically, they couldn't really challenge the fact that the conditions were awful. They'd refused to let our witnesses in to verify the conditions for themselves, and when people had finally just, gone and done it anyway, it was like, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that.
And then you won, didn't you?
We did win on that issue, yes. Thanks very much to all the people who got footage that showed the reality.
You would like to spend the whole of your life crouched on a wire floor?
Yeah, so this is one thing you didn't imagine when you, Helen, you said, no, I'm not going to apologise, that you'd be acting in a film playing yourself directed by Ken Loach. How was it for you?
It was pretty weird, really. It was kind of weird reenacting it, but also I guess it's more difficult than doing it for real in the courtroom, because when you're doing it for real in the courtroom, you're just kind of saying either what's come into your head or what questions you've prepared. But when you're reenacting it, you've got to say the exact words and, try and put some expression in it as well.
Had you done any acting before?
Not since I was at school.
My original drama script had a lot more of your stuff, Helen, and then I discussed it with Ken Loach, and he was saying, we shouldn't have this bit and we shouldn't have that bit, and all the bits that ended up getting cut were your bits, and I actually thought he was wrong and that they should be in, but I just couldn't possibly argue with Ken Loach. Because we were forced to distribute this ourselves, I think we've actually been much more successful in terms of sheer numbers. We've worked out that 26 million people have now seen this McLibel documentary, which is it's a good 10 times more than your average BBC documentary. The reason for that is that because we're not interested in the money as such, we're prepared to give it to anybody who wants it whenever they want it. For example, there's a cable channel in America called WorldLink TV, and they contacted us and said, we've only got $2,000, but can we have McLibel? And, the BBC wouldn't do that kind of deal. And that was another 3 million people who watched it that weekend in America.
I remember coming out of court and just feeling totally relieved that was it, and that we didn't have to do loads and loads and loads of work anymore, that it was
like the end of
finally
school.
Over. Yeah.
It was kind of a strange feeling, a bizarre kind of, where are we now? We just have to wait. It was a bit of a cliffhanger.
These shots of the McDonald's store being refurbished was actually my local store. So I just sat in the cafe opposite and got these really good shots, but the McDonald's people spotted me and they kept coming over. And they were saying, what are you doing? Why are you filming? And I said, it's a street, I can film what I like. This is my new camera and I'm just trying it out and I'm a student and this kind of thing. And then they said to me, so why do you have a McLibel t-shirt on? All sorts of people helped us in all sorts of different ways. For example, in India, the new McDonald's in India, and that was a friend of a friend who was going travelling, and she agreed to take one of our cameras with her for like 6 months travelling around India, just in order that she could get this one shot of Delhi for us.
To pretend they're concerned about healthy eating, but there's nothing really they can do because fundamentally they exist for that one purpose, making profits for their shareholders.
You know the characteristics your dad has that made it possible that he could fight McDonald's, which nobody else has ever been able to do in such a way. Do you feel that you've got any of those?
Yeah, well, he's got a lot of confidence, obviously, and he's got principle. So if he believes in something, he will definitely fight it. Yeah, I'd say I got the same.
And what do you think of McDonald's? Have you ever eaten there?
I have, yeah. I've had chips and stuff from there. I think I wanted to try the chips because I heard so much from my dad about how they're so bad. I didn't want to go in there at first. I was scared because I was thinking, no, I'm portraying my dad or something like that.
Wow.
Then I went in there in the end and just had some chips. Oh, and I had a veggie burger. I remember now. The chips quite tasty, but they're extremely fattening. I must have just squeezed it and it was like a river coming out of fat. But they're very tasty for young kids, I can tell you that, because they've got a lot of salt on it and probably even medicine glutamate. But the veggie burger wasn't too bad.
So have you ever admitted to your dad before that you've been to McDonald's?
I think I have. Or if I haven't...
He knows now.
He knows now, yeah.
TV companies and other media outlets would contact us and say they wanted to interview us about the case. And then they'd get back to us a little while later and say, "Oh, McDonald's have refused to be interviewed, so we can't run the story
because we have
ridiculous.
to have a balanced story." Yeah. But of course,
so but the point is, McDonald's then were effectively stopping public, publicity about the case. It was a very effective strategy.
That have been exposed in the case. Do I want my children to go into a kind of organisation like that?
Okay, so this is Judgment Day. Dave's on the bus, but you don't know it's a bus because I'm such a bad filmmaker and I didn't get an outside shot of the bus.
We didn't just win the points that the judge said that we'd won, but on the other points, we believe that we actually won those points. If you look at the whole written verdict, which is 700 pages, buried in that is points that we'd won, but the judge didn't think they were just enough to win a major. Some of the 3 or 4 points that we hadn't won. That written verdict, does stand for all time against McDonald's.
But they had shown that McDonald's exploit children with their advertising, produce misleading advertising, are culpably responsible for cruelty to animals, are strongly antipathetic to unions, and pay their workers low wages.
We were trying to absorb the verdict and really what it meant because it was quite complicated. So we knew we'd won some stuff and we hadn't won other stuff, But of course, coming out, it looked like, hey, we'd won the whole thing.
I was stunned by the number of people there were outside. I couldn't quite believe it.
Did you know there was going to be so many people?
I didn't know there would be anybody really.
This is weird. So what are we doing? We stay here all day. We'll stand here for long enough to get a load of photos. Hold your bag up.
As soon as all the other news channels there saw that we had got radio mics on Helen and Dave, i.e. we could hear what they were saying, they were literally offering me cash. There was literally cash in the air for a feed of our radio mics, but I just knew that it was going to be so exclusive to get their reactions that I turned down the cash.
So Spotlight beat the mainstream media to getting the news out there of Helen Day's glorious victory. Basically, we had a person in the court who, once the judgment had been recited by Mr. Bell, they ran outside, made a mobile call to McSpotlight HQ. They got the results onto the website within 4 minutes. Whilst people like Sky, etc., were still on their mobile phones, phoning it through to their news desk, we were broadcasting live to millions of people. And the week after, we had 2.2 million hits.
Broadly satisfied with the judgment given this morning. It's my responsibility to protect our reputation, and that's exactly what we've done. Very serious allegations were made about our company. They were proven to be false.
What do you think the significance of the trial is now?
I think the main significance is that it's a huge rallying call for everybody who is opposed to everything McDonald's represents. To see two people standing up to them, I mean, is enormously encouraging.
As far as we're concerned, what would have been a loss is if we hadn't fought this case and people had been intimidated into trial.
Well, this wasn't a matter of costs, it wasn't a matter of damages, it was a matter of establishing the truth.
Yeah, the truth is that they exploit children, that they pay low wages, that they deceive their customers on the nutritional value of their food, that their food is linked to heart disease. Yeah,
they established
certainly
that, didn't they?
some major truths were established, that's absolutely right.
So when you came out of court after the verdict, you actually were giving out leaflets, weren't you?
Thousands of people had pledged to give out leaflets.
Yeah, but they weren't all giving it
verdict.
out in front of the media.
No, but obviously it was important that if other people were going to be doing it, that we should be doing it as well.
So wasn't it a criminal offence by that point then?
It could have been a civil offence if McDonald's had gone through with their original aim, which was to gain an injunction to stop people handing out leaflets. But in actual fact, they were given 30 days after the verdict to apply for an injunction, and they completely gave up and just failed to make that application.
And plus they never chased you up for the £60,000 damages, did they?
No, they certainly didn't.
It was symbolic that basically that whatever one judge thinks, the point is the campaign has succeeded in mass distribution of leaflets all over the world, and that as we walk out of the courtroom after the verdict, we're giving out leaflets as well. So, McDonald's had achieved absolutely zero by bringing the case. But in some ways, it wasn't really like the end. A lot of people think, well, that was the end. But to me, that was just an important step forward in the case. There was the mass leafleting to come and, more publicity and
the
so on.
The documentary to be finished.
Of course, I was thinking about that mainly, yes.
That date used to look like this weird future date. And it always used to get a good laugh at the end of screenings because it was like 5 years. No way would Helen and Dave still be doing McLibel in 5 years.
I thought the most amazing thing in the film is when he says, "You're really good at this PR stuff." This is McDonald's, head of McDonald's, saying, "You're really good at this PR stuff." They're the world's most famous PR
since the Christian
organisation in the last 2,000 years. And all we are is just people saying the truth about them. So it shows the power of the truth. What?
She said it's good.
Good!
So that's it. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay, next then.
No, right.
Well,
hang on, Dave. This is the bit you always want to bang on about the campaign.
Yeah, but it's like saying he should have more time in the film. No, it's not the point, is it really?
But you've got to do the bit about you phoning her. Because you've got to say that when you phoned her, you were recording.
I've already said the bit about
phoning her. Yeah, but Lizzie wants to
know
know
about
the
the
tape.
but I can. Okay. I was going to do it a different way.
You do it how you want to do it. So what kind of people? What kind?
In the debating room. Is she putting words in my mouth? What do you reckon?
Have you got anything to say about them?
I've got nothing to say. No comment. Jesse's going home.
That was a good name, Jesse, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think that's probably it, isn't it? I was trying to think of the way up, but there's nothing else. Usually monumental.